Just wanted to take a real quick break this morning from the Antarctica videos and say thank you to everyone who continues to show up here every day and click on the videos, like, share, engage in the comment section. It definitely helps the algorithm. Thank you guys so much. Those of you who are continuing to show up over at the Patreon channel where it's only $1 per month for everything, you guys have no idea how big of a difference that $1 per person makes. It is truly moving the needle, and we're going to have some brand new stuff up, and probably in the next 24 to 36 hours, one that's going to be a little bit TVMA, R-rated, NC-17, because it has to do with a very, very touchy topic that's been talked about here for the last, I'd say, probably 5 to 10 years. And we're going to do kind of a PG-13 rated version of that video here today. And it has directly to do with psychological operations and how people, even myself, if I'm not careful, will get caught up in this and assume things that aren't true without stepping back for a minute and taking a breath. Now, just real quick, the Patreon details. www.patreon.com/Florida Maquis. I'll have a link right down in the description box. It's an easy one to click. It's only $1 per month. That's for everything. It's even less than that if you sign up for an entire year at one time. Fully refundable first 90 days. What's the difference? The videos go on to a Vimeo server, not a Google one. And so we can kind of take the gloves off a little bit and really talk about things in a very uncensored way. Proof of this? Down in the comment section, you'll see primarily women who have complained and said, Florida Maquis, there's too much skin over at your Patreon channel. It's just too much. I can't handle it. Can I have my refund? Absolutely. Not a problem. And we do. We talk about things that you really can't talk about that other channels are afraid to talk about because they're afraid of getting labeled. Given that most of my audience, about 80%, is men, as much as it bothers me sometimes that the women are a little bit offended, I can't let 80% of my audience suffer for not knowing the truth because of a small minority. Psychological Operations 101 is in full effect right now. Now, we're going to start out here because I think it points us to something that we believe that isn't true. U.S. cracking down on egg smuggling. Entering the country from Mexico with raw eggs is forbidden, no matter how expensive they are in California. What happened to caveat emptor? What happened to free market capitalism? U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials have warned Americans against trying to smuggle raw eggs or poultry over the border from Mexico, citing risks of disease. As skyrocketing supermarket prices drive normally law-abiding citizens to take extreme measures to have their eggs. Now, whether it's eggs or whether it's fentanyl or whether it's cocaine, what happened to the free market? What happened to free market capitalism being the salvation of all mankind? I mean, whether you get a wonderful high from having your delicious bacon and egg breakfast with some gravy and biscuits and all that kind of stuff, or whether you get it from just one tiny little pill, whatever it is that makes you happy, why shouldn't it be allowed in the free market? Why should government intervene in your happiness? And your financial situation here, raw egg seizures along the Mexican border jumped 108% for the last quarter of 2022. Now, I'm sure some of you are saying, wait a minute, Florida Maquis, you cannot compare what fentanyl does versus what eggs do. Oh, yes, I can. Eggs and things like them are responsible for a lot more deaths than fentanyl. Oh, that's not true, Maquis. No, I know you're... Really? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll prove it. Jumped 108% for the last quarter of 2022 compared to the same period of 2021. Customs and Border Patrol Supervisory Agricultural Specialist Charles Payne told El Paso NBC affiliate KTSM on Wednesday during that same 3-month period in 2022, the average cost of a dozen eggs in the U.S. soared from $3.50 to $5.30. Okay, $3.50 to $5.30. It's not $3.50 to $35 or, $3.50 to, $17.50. It went from $3.50 to about $5.50, couple dollars. It went up a couple dollars a dozen. In Juarez, a customer can get 30 eggs for $3.40. Now, I'm sure in other places it's much, much higher. But 40% of Americans, minimum number here, 40% of Americans are clinically obese. And one of the things that they will cut out of your diet, if you go to a dietitian and say, okay, I need to lose this weight, I need to get back on track, I need to, start taking better care of my health, they're going to take eggs out of your diet. I guarantee it. They may, at some point later on, once they've taken the weight off, allow you to reintroduce some type of an egg substitute. But this is from 2015. Study: obese people may never attain normal body weight. It's so rare that once somebody gets this big, that they ever actually lose the weight and keep it off. A cohort study published in the American Journal of Public Health reads the odds of an obese man reaching a normal body mass index during any given year as 1 in 210. For women, it's 1 in 124. And if you're clinic like morbidly obese, it's like 1 in 200,000. It's ridiculous. Oh no, here it is. 1 in 1,200. If you're morbidly obese, if you're a man, 167 if you're a woman. And by 2030, which a lot of people think, oh, 2030, that's forever. That's only 7 years away. 7 years away? You want to go back 7 years? That's 2016. You want to go back 7 years? That's 2016. That's Donald Trump as president. A lot of you remember that, don't you? Well, that's all the difference in the distance between now and 2030. Half of Americans. Half. Now, what does this have to do with anything that really matters, that's really being talked about? Florida Maquis, wait a minute. What, Prince Andrew, wait, hold on. Are you just saying that he's skinny or she's skinny or they didn't eat eggs or, no. No, what it has to do with is our form of government. It's about liberty. It's about freedom to make choices for yourself. And then live with those choices. Let me say it again. The idea of you shoving your mouth full of eggs at whatever cost, and the idea of you spending time with whoever, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, is entirely up to you. Now, for many, many years, when people envisioned a good, healthy breakfast, 2 eggs, a couple slices of bacon, toast, orange juice, maybe a little bowl of fruit. Well, that's not what people eat now, for sure. They eat a 1/4 pound of bacon, usually an omelet that's 6 to 7 eggs, with cheese, biscuits and gravy, with big chunks of pork in it. And they call that a healthy breakfast. And then maybe a couple of big, huge, starch-filled pancakes with a bunch of syrup and butter. But what does this have to do with it? Well, this is the human version of this, where sometimes we think one thing, and then because of how it makes us feel, we don't think about it. How many of you have ever out there had that experience from food? Now, a lot of people are still confused. Why do you keep showing this picture of Prince Andrew and this Virginia Giuffre? Well, Prince Andrew is building a $12 million legal war chest to demand this woman retract her claims because this picture I'm showing you is fake. And I used this picture in a couple of different videos, and because I fell for the psyop, I didn't look at it critically. Just like a big, healthy breakfast is a psyop of one kind, somebody says a healthy breakfast is pancakes and eggs and sausage, and then you go eat said healthy breakfast, quote-unquote healthy, and you feel good after jamming your mouth full of all that sugar and all that crap. You're like, wow, this does feel healthy. I feel really good after eating all these 3,000 calories full of horrible stuff. You see, this is the human version of this. You see, somebody says, Prince Andrew did this horrible thing with this minor. And you think, well, you've got a guy in his mid to late 30s. Maybe he's, got midlife crisis going on. This pretty young girl. It's very plausible. And then you see the picture and you go, oh, well, yeah, sure, of course. Without actually looking at the picture closely. It's photoshopped. And it's super easy to see if you don't. Literally, you do not need to be some kind of a wizard with computers to figure out that this image of her right here, has been copy-pasted into this picture. And it shows it 2 different places. Now, I'm going to pull this up with my computer's photo program, not the internet. Now, I want you to look closely at 2 different places. Her hairline, right here, and we're going to zoom in. And then way down here by where his left hand is on her waist. We're going to go up to this first part here. You can literally see the line right here. You see how even these marks are? Where they literally cut her out of another photo right here. And this is a really good job. Whoever did this did a really, really good job. Because what they did is they fake blurred it out. What they did is they made the whole picture kind of blurry to make it look like a really, really, really good, authentic picture. It's not, but that's kind of a tougher one to see. But down here, where his hand, look right here where his finger is. They accidentally cut this off at 90 degrees. Look at this. Look how abnormal his hand looks here. This is a copy-paste job. Now, why hadn't anybody looked at this? You see, recently, this woman here, Ghislaine Maxwell, has alleged from prison that this is a fake photo. And think about it for just a minute. Let's say that you were doing something that you knew was legally blurry, if not horribly illegal. Would you be sitting smiling for pictures that you were just going to let somebody walk out of the room with? No, of course you wouldn't. Why would you? The man's a Prince of England. You don't think that... very few people get the opportunity to pose for a picture with a Prince of England. But don't you think they would have had this kind of stuff buttoned up? This is fake. This is an absolute... And I fell for it. I'll admit it. I fell for it. I looked at the picture and I thought, well, she's not really a child in the picture. She's, if somebody looked at this and said this was a 19 or 20-year-old girl, I'd believe it. If they said this girl was 17, I'd believe it. Anybody out there who says they can tell the difference between a 17 and 20-year-old girl by looking is lying. Let me say that again. Anybody who says that they can tell the difference between a 17 and a 20-year-old girl is lying. Unless they know the girl. Unless they're seeing a series of photos of said girl at like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You could probably put them in order. But not in this particular case. Now, over at the Patreon channel, probably at least 6 months ago, we talked about this idea of actual intent versus what you do in reality. Because in our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, what happens when the pursuit of happiness changes? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. What happens when the thing that you're chasing, say at 17 or 18 years old to make you happy, later on in life makes you unhappy? And then you go try to make other people pay for it. You see, when we go back here, we think, wow, all of those delicious meals, that was my right to pursuit of happiness. But have you ever seen a 95-year-old that looked like this? No. Never. They don't live that long. So are people, obese Americans, going to start going after fast food or going after people who sell food that causes you to gain weight because at one time it was what they wanted? At one time it was what they wanted, but now they're seeing later on in life that it has a horribly deleterious effect. Something they wanted at one time, but now later on in life they regret. Something they wanted at one time, now later in life they regret. Do you see the connection? Now do you see the correlation? Sometimes the things that we think we want later on have consequences. How long? What's the statute of limitations on pursuit of happiness and holding people responsible? Now, this particular video is going to have a R-rated TVMA version that we're going to only be able to show over at the Patreon channel. But this idea of making decisions for ourselves, even though others might not approve, they may not know all the details. Do we have the right to do that? Or does there always have to be complete and full disclosure of all possible said consequences of something before we're even allowed to offer it as an option? Because who knows? And here's kind of a hint. I've used this image from Colony and the series that we've been talking about where the aliens come and they bring down the walls. We talked about it ad nauseum at this point. Go back and closely look at the relationship between these three characters slowly, and you'll see something that they don't talk about, but it's in the subtext. It's in the subtext, and I think this may have been one of the bigger reasons that they canceled the series, more so than it was telling the truth a little bit too much about what the plans were of the government for the future. So, psychological operations 101. Sometimes things are connected that we don't think are. And I'll go through this real quick. The price of eggs went up. Why? Because they destroyed a bunch of healthy chickens because of the possibility of avian flu. And so now they're smuggling eggs across the border to make a profit. And the Customs Border Patrol is trying to crack down on that, even though people want eggs. But wait a minute. Do Americans need eggs? Since half of us are going to be obese in 7 years? And some of us morbidly obese with an almost zero chance of ever recovering? Is that a good thing? Or should we allow the eggs to come? Or should we drive the price back down in the name of freedom and liberty and I can eat whatever I want? Or I can do whatever I want and lie about whatever I want? Because when I was young, I did something that I regretted. So now I have to kind of tell a little bit of a lie and forge and fake a picture to make things right, so to speak. How many of you when you were younger? Us, I should say. How many of us could eat half a dozen eggs, pancakes, biscuits and gravy, never gain a pound? But then all of a sudden, those bad habits Who should we blame? Who should we blame? Didn't have an effect then, has an effect now. Wasn't the end of her world then, but sure is now. This picture's a fake. It's a phony. Did they have some type of a relationship? Maybe, but this picture is a fake. It's a fake. Guaranteed. Look at it closely. Those of you who have big computer monitors at home, zoom in and you'll see it. It is so clear. But people would ask, why did nobody see this before? Because it was plausible. Because it was emotionally plausible. Not critically, emotionally plausible. You could see it and think, well, all right, yeah. You know, guys, sometimes when they get that age, kind of gravitate toward younger girls to try to relive their... It was believable. And that's all people needed. Even myself, I have to blame myself here. So, I will leave it there. But, God bless. Would love to have you. Love to have you over at the Patreon channel. Believe me, you're going to want to see the NC-17 R-rated version of this video. If you really want to know the truth. If you really want to see what's going on out there. So, $1 US per month. That's it. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.